So in this chapter, we're going to talk about reflectors. We've covered ballast, we've covered lighting. Now it's what the bulb is going to be housed in. Now there's multiple types of reflectors out there, constantly new reflectors coming out. You have everything from just a regular standard reflector, kind of like you see here, to a parabolic reflector, which is a reflector that looks like an umbrella, to water-cooled reflectors, which have this whole different type of water-cooled apparatus to it. And then you have these, reflectors that don't have any type of housing at all. It's just a big metal kind of wing on it. There's ones called adjust-a-wings that are really good too as well, that aren't air-cooled. And then you have air-cooled reflectors, which is this, and they got these duct flanges and holes, so that way you can pass air over top of the bulb. So we're going to start with this. Air-cooled reflectors are a common staple in most gardens these days, and the reason why is because you're able to control the heat. You're able to reduce that heat down and be able to get it to where your room will stay nice and cool. So the reason why you need these little duct flanges here is because you connect ducting to this, and then this connects to an actual fan that's pulling the air out. So you have a streamline. Now there's a couple ways you can go about this. It really depends if you're using CO2 or not. But if you're not using CO2, then one side of these will be connected to a filter, and then the other side will have the fan pulling the air out, and it'll pull the air through the filter, through the lights, out the exit, or wherever that may be. This way, you're able to filter that air before it leaves the room. And then this stays closed. You have a couple hinges on the side that opens it up, so that way you can change the bulb or clean the glass or however you want to do it. But this reflective material in here is specially designed with these little perforations to keep hot spots from forming. If this was just to be a flat surface, more than likely the light would produce hot spots in the garden. Hot spots are where there's burn spots on the tops of your plants from being too close to the light. But what this does is it distributes the lights and refracts the lights in multiple directions to where you get an even coat of light and you're not going to get a bunch of hot spots. That's why this metal is perforated here. The flanges come in different sizes. You can either get 6-inch, you can get 4-inch, 8-inch is very common. Normally 8-inch you want to use for your 1,000 watts, obviously. You can use 6-inch for your 600s, and then 4-inch for obviously anything lower than a 600 would work fine. But for the most part, 8 inches is pretty standard as far as having a flange here on the end that pulls the air through it. Now, let's just say I am using CO2. What you want to do there is you don't want to connect a filter to the end because you're not trying to suck all your CO2 out of the room. What you want to do there is you just want to have an exit and an entry point that goes from fresh air to fresh air. So if I'm running fresh air in from the outside, it's a closed loop system, it's going to run through, pass over the bulb, and then go straight outside. Sometimes manufacturers, there's this seal on the inside of this, and sometimes manufacturers don't make that seal proper, as it just comes like maybe ripped or torn, or it doesn't work. One good thing to do is to take metal tape and run it around these edges, so that way no smell will get inside there and then run outside if you're using CO2 in a closed loop system. So if you put metal tape on the outside of here, it'll keep that from happening. And these are the standard reflectors of today. And the next we're going to talk about is a parabolic reflector. Parabolic reflector, as you can see in the picture, is a circular reflector with a bulb in the middle. Sometimes it has multiple bulbs in the middle. And this reflects the light in such a pattern where it just covers a large area. Now these are good for like vegetating gardens, gardens in the vegetative process, because it spreads so much light. You can put like 2 or 3 of these around a garden and be able to get a lot of light around the areas, and it does really well for that. The next we're going to talk about is this type of reflector, which is pretty new. It's been out for a while, but it's relatively new, and it's a water-cooled reflector. Now, what this does is there's a little barb right here that you connect tubing to, okay, and you have it run into a pump, and the pump is sitting inside of a reservoir. And then on the other side, whether it's in a chain or whether there's multiple bulbs, the pump will pump the water through here, and there's two sides of glass. So there's one glass that holds the bulb, and that's covered, and then there's another small space in between another piece of glass so that the water can pass through over top of the bulb, but over top of the glass that the bulb is inside of. So that way no water gets in there. So water will pass through and it'll cool down the bulb. Now it does reduce some of the lighting intensity and some of the luminosity of it, but for the most part, it'll take out a lot of that heat as opposed to air cooling like this does. Not to say that air cooling isn't great. It's just this is a new technology that they developed to be able to pull that heat out without the use of fans. Fans do create a lot of noise. Fans do suck a lot of power, and so this way you're able to reduce all that. You could even have this sitting inside of a room and not even worried about someone coming by and hearing it as you would with a fan with an air-cooled system. So these are relatively new. They're really good. They work really well, and I would suggest it only because if you were worried about operating a lot of fans or worried about the electricity operating fans or the noise, this really helps with that. One of the cool things about this is that the radiant heat is reduced significantly more than this is. Just because this is the problem with air-cooled reflectors, is the fact that even though you're passing air through here, you're pulling a lot of the heat out that's building up inside of here. You're producing a lot of radiant heat out here that's not being controlled unless it's being controlled by air conditioning out inside the room. So that can be a really big issue, even though you have everything air cooled and everything's at the right CFM and so on and so forth. It definitely causes more radiant heat, which could be overlooked. Whereas this reduces a lot of that radiant heat to where you're not even concerned about that at all. It just eliminates it completely. So this wraps it up for our chapter on reflectors, and this concludes the class on lighting.